Queenie's castle felt like a warm escape into the gritty, hilarious world of 1970s Leeds. But as the years passed, the light inside that castle went out in the most heart-wrenching ways imaginable. From icons consumed by cancer to stars who passed away in total isolation, the fate of this cast is a story of absolute tragedy. This is Queenie's castle you loved, and the tragedies that claimed them all. Diana Dors, as Queenie Shepherd. Diana Dors was born on October 23, 1931, in Swindon, Wiltshire, England. At 39 years old, she played Queenie Shepherd, the strong-willed mother and commanding landlady in the series. Her role as the central female authority in the household brought sharp humor and emotional dominance to the series, making Queenie the driving force around which all family and neighborhood conflicts revolved. Diana Dors rose to fame as Britain's blonde bombshell, often compared to Marilyn Monroe, and built her early career through films like The Shop at Sly Corner, 1947, and later acclaimed performances such as Yield to the Night, 1956. Her rise was rapid, but it also placed her under intense media pressure from a very young age. By her teenage years, she was already working in Lambda and performing in films, which pushed her into adult fame before she had fully matured emotionally. Her personal life was marked by 3 marriages and deep emotional turbulence. Her first husband, Dennis Hamilton, became both manager and controlling figure in her career, and their relationship was later revealed to involve financial manipulation and emotional strain. She later married Richard Dawson, with whom she had 2 sons, but the marriage collapsed under career pressure and separation. Her final marriage to Alan Lake was the most volatile, filled with emotional dependence, public tension, and periods of intense instability that followed her into the final years of her life. Behind her glamorous image, Diana's life became increasingly dominated by scandal and health decline. She became a tabloid figure during the 1960s and 1970s, particularly due to the infamous adult parties at her home, which mixed celebrities, alcohol, and controversy, turning her into one of Britain's most talked-about public figures. At the same time, she struggled with ovarian cancer in her later years, undergoing multiple surgeries while continuing to work in television and cabaret. Her condition worsened significantly by the early 1980s, but she still appeared in projects like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1980, and continued performing despite physical weakness. Diana Dors passed away on the 4th of May, 1984, at the age of 52 in Windsor, England, after her ovarian cancer returned and spread aggressively, also complicated by meningitis and multiple surgeries. She was buried at Sunningdale Catholic Cemetery, where she rests beside her husband Alan Lake, who tragically took his own life just 5 months later. At the time of her death, her estate was estimated at around $6 to $8 million in today's value, though much of it was later absorbed by taxes and legal costs. Her life remains remembered as a dramatic rise and fall of one of Britain's most iconic and controversial screen legends. Tony Conter as Jack Shepherd. Tony Conter was born on the 22nd of September 1937 in Southampton, Hampshire, England. At 33 years old, he played Jack Shepherd, the older brother-in-law and disruptive family relative in Queenie's castle. His role brought tension and humor into Queenie's household, often acting as the unpredictable force that triggered conflicts within the working-class family dynamic. But long before he stepped into that familiar television role, Tony Conter had already spent years building himself slowly inside the British acting industry. After serving in the RAF, he trained in drama and began appearing in small television parts across the 1960s. Early roles in Z-Cars, The Avengers, and Crown Court gave him constant work, but real recognition never came quickly, and he remained in the background of British television for much of his early career. Behind that steady professional life, his personal world was surprisingly stable, and this is where his story begins to shift in tone. Tony Conter married Frances Wallace in 1962, and their marriage became a long-term anchor in his life, producing 4 children and lasting throughout decades of industry change. Conter's private life stayed consistent, creating a quiet contrast to the instability often seen in entertainment careers. That stability gave him space to build a slow but steady rise in television, and eventually he became widely recognized through EastEnders as Roy Evans, one of the show's most familiar long-term characters from 1994 to 2003. Alongside this success, he also appeared in major British dramas such as Juliet Bravo and The Chief, securing his place as one of the most reliable supporting actors in UK television history. Tony Conter passed away on the 13th of October 2025 at the age of 88 in Eastbourne General Hospital, just 1 week after the death of his wife, Frances Wallace. He had retired from acting in 2016 and spent his final years in East Sussex. His estimated net worth was around $1.5 million, earned through decades of steady television work. Barry Rudder as Douglas Shepherd. Barry Rudder was born on December 12, 1946, in Hull, Yorkshire, England. At 24 years old, he played Douglas Shepherd, the younger male family member in the series, adding youthful energy and working-class realism to the Shepherd household. His role helped balance the stronger adult characters, giving the series a more natural and grounded family dynamic. But Barry Rudder's path to that screen role was not straightforward at all. Before entering television, he had already gone through years of training and rejection in the theater world. Starting with the National Youth Theatre in 1964, he moved into professional stage work and was even passed over for major productions before being written into roles by playwright Peter Turson. These early setbacks shaped his determination and pushed him deeper into serious acting rather than commercial fame. That same intensity carried into his personal life, where his story became more emotional and complex over time. He married American academic Carol Chillington in 1978, and together they raised 2 daughters while balancing careers in theater and education. However, behind this family structure, Rudder also experienced deep personal loss, including the heartbreaking death of a newborn child, a tragedy that he later described as one of the most painful moments of his life. From that point, his career and personal resilience began to define each other. He founded Northern Broadsides in 1992, creating a theater company that brought Shakespeare into Northern English voices and working-class culture, earning him national recognition and an OBE. Even after stepping down from leadership in 2017 due to funding struggles, and later facing throat cancer in 2020, he continued performing, directing, and touring, proving his long-term commitment to theater. As of 2026, Barry Rudder is 79 years old and remains active in performance work, including stage shows, radio, and touring productions. His estimated net worth is around $2 million, built through decades of acting, directing, and theater leadership. For us, he is remembered not only as an actor, but as a cultural innovator who reshaped how Shakespeare could be performed for modern audiences. Brian Marshall as Bunny Shepherd. Brian Marshall was born in 1937 in the United Kingdom. At 32 years old, he played Bunny Shepherd, the pub landlord and older brother figure within the Shepherd family in Queenie's castle. His character acted as Queenie's family support in the household structure, running the local pub and often stepping into domestic disputes, which helped ground the sitcom in everyday working-class life. Brian Marshall grew up in post-war Britain and entered acting through small theater work before moving into television. He trained himself through repertory stages and early stage productions, gradually building experience in supporting roles. This led to television opportunities in the 1960s and 1970s, where he appeared in long-running British dramas such as Coronation Street, Z-Cars, and Crossroads, usually playing working-class supporting characters like pub staff, workers, or family relatives. As his career developed, Brian became a familiar face in British television without ever becoming a leading star. He continued appearing in series such as Softly, Softly, and The Avengers, where his roles remained brief but steady. Even though he worked regularly, he was rarely cast in central storylines, which shaped a career built on consistency rather than fame. His role in Queenie's castle remained one of his more recognizable appearances during this period. In his later years, Brian gradually reduced his screen appearances while dealing with long-term heart-related health problems that increasingly limited his energy and mobility. Before his death, he remained quietly connected to the acting world, but focused more on private life rather than active filming. Brian Marshall passed away in 2019 at the age of 81 due to complications from chronic heart disease and age-related illness. At the time of his death, he was remembered as a steady, working actor with an estimated net worth of around $1 million, built through decades of supporting roles in British television. His passing marked the quiet end of a long career defined by persistence, discipline, and consistent contribution rather than fame or controversy. Lynn Perry, as Mrs. Petty. Lynn Perry was born on the 7th of April, 1931, in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, England. At 39 years old, she played Mrs. Petty, the outspoken residence committee secretary and strict mother figure within the local community in the series. Her role as Queenie's neighbor and social watchdog brought sharp comedic tension to the series. Before stepping into television fame, Lynn Perry's life began in modest working-class surroundings where she left school early to pursue entertainment. She started performing as a teenage singer in working men's clubs under the nickname Dizzy, quickly building a reputation for bold stage presence. These early performances eventually led her into cabaret touring across the UK, gradually building her confidence and visibility in the entertainment world. Her transition into acting came after years of live performance success, leading to early screen appearances in projects such as Kes, 1969, and later television roles including Crown Court and The Cuckoo Waltz. As her career expanded, Lynn Perry reached national recognition through her long-running role as Ivy Tilsley in Coronation Street, where she appeared for over 23 years. But this success was overshadowed by personal struggles, including alcohol dependency, financial stress, and publicly reported mental health issues such as bipolar disorder. One of the most damaging turning points in her life came when a cosmetic lip surgery in the 1990s went wrong, severely altering her appearance and contributing to her removal from Coronation Street after decades on the show. Lynn Perry passed away on 24 March 2006 at the age of 74 in Maltby, South Yorkshire, after suffering a stroke and long-term health decline. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth was around $1.2 million, built through decades of television work, cabaret performances, and public appearances. Brian Moseley as pub landlord. Brian Moseley was born on 25 August 1931 in Leeds, West Yorkshire, England. At 39 years old, he played the pub landlord, the local owner of the working-class pub, and a central adult male figure in the community in Queenie's castle. His role as the steady presence in the neighborhood added realism to the series, grounding its humor in everyday pub life and community interactions. Brian Moseley did not enter acting through instant fame, but through a long and disciplined early path. After studying at Leeds College of Art, he served in the RAF before training as an actor at Bradford Civic Theatre and Northern Theatre School. He built experience through repertory theatre across Yorkshire, while also working in jobs such as commercial art and teaching. This slow, steady foundation later helped him transition into television roles in series like Z-Cars, A Family at War, and The Avengers. Brian Moseley married his childhood sweetheart Norma Bowes on 25 July 1956, and their marriage lasted until his death. Together, they built a large family with 6 children while living a stable life in West Yorkshire. Unlike many actors in the industry, his marriage remained long-term and consistent, even as his career demanded frequent work commitments and long filming schedules. The strength of this relationship became one of the few constant anchors in his personal life, especially during periods of professional pressure and health decline. His professional recognition grew significantly with his long-running role as Alf Roberts in Coronation Street, where he became one of the show's most familiar faces across nearly 2,000 episodes. However, in 1997, his health began to seriously decline after a major heart attack forced him into extended time off. Despite returning briefly, ongoing cardiac and respiratory problems made it increasingly difficult for him to continue working, eventually leading to his departure from the series he had helped define. Brian Mosley passed away on 9th February 1999 at the age of 67 after collapsing from a sudden heart attack near his home in Shipley, West Yorkshire. At the time of his death, he was remembered as a respected television actor with an estimated net worth of around $900,000, earned through decades of steady work in British television. His funeral brought together family, colleagues, and cast members, marking the end of a long and quietly influential career in British entertainment. Kathy Staff as Mrs. Blakey. Kathy Staff was born on July 12, 1928, in Dukenfield, Cheshire, England. At 42 years old, she played Mrs. Blakey, the strict female council secretary and outspoken administrative authority within the local housing community in the series. Her role as the council's supervising mother figure in the neighborhood brought firm discipline and sharp comedic conflict into the series. Kathy Staff began her career in repertory theater in 1946, working under the stage name Catherine Brandt, before adopting her married name after wedding John Staff in 1951. She temporarily stepped away from acting to focus on family life, but later returned through television work in the 1960s, starting with small, extra roles at Granada Television. Over time, she built a steady screen presence with appearances in productions such as Coronation Street, Open All Hours, and The Benny Hill Show, gradually re-establishing herself in British television comedy and drama. Her personal life remained relatively stable compared to many performers of her era. She stayed married to John Staff for decades, balancing family responsibilities with an increasingly successful acting career. However, the emotional turning point in her life came with her most iconic role as Nora Batty, the long-suffering wife in Last of the Summer Wine, which she played from 1973 until her death in 2008. The role became so defining that it overshadowed much of her earlier work, turning her into one of the most recognizable faces in British sitcom history. In 2008, Kathy Staff's health took a sudden and serious decline when she was diagnosed with a brain tumor only months before her passing. Despite treatment, her condition worsened rapidly, and she spent her final days at Willowwood Hospice in Ashton-under-Lyne, surrounded by family. Her death marked the end of a career spanning over 6 decades, with an estimated net worth of around $1 million, earned through consistent television, theater, and film work. She was remembered not only for her comedic talent, but also for her dedication to performance and charitable work throughout her life. Freddie Fletcher, as Raymond Shepherd. Freddie Fletcher was born in 1950 in Grimethorpe, West Riding of Yorkshire, England. At 20 years old, he played Raymond Shepherd, the layabout son and rebellious male child in Queenie's Castle, 1970 to 1972. His role as one of Queenie's wayward sons brought youthful chaos into the household dynamic in the series. After his sudden breakthrough in Kess, 1969, under Ken Loach, Freddie Fletcher entered television almost immediately despite having no formal acting training. He moved from a working-class job as a painter and decorator into screen acting, landing roles that reflected his real-life background. This led him to Queenie's Castle and later appearances in productions such as Play for Today and Another Sunday and Sweet F.A. Unlike many actors of his generation, Freddie Fletcher's personal life remained extremely private and stable, especially in terms of marriage. He married Joy, a former school staff member, and together they built a long-lasting relationship away from the media spotlight. While his career exposed him to intense working environments in film and television, his marriage became a grounding force that helped him step away from the instability often associated with acting careers in the 1970s British film industry. As his career moved into the 1980s and 1990s, Fletcher continued appearing in television dramas such as Emmerdale Farm, Heartbeat, Peak Practice, and Children's Ward. However, after his final screen appearance in When Saturday Comes, 1996, he gradually retired from acting and chose a quieter life. He deliberately stepped away from the entertainment industry to focus on family life. Freddie Fletcher is currently 75 years old and lives privately in Grimethorpe with his wife Joy and their 3 sons. After leaving acting, he completely withdrew from public life, only occasionally referenced in discussions about Ken Loach's Kes and British working-class cinema history. His estimated net worth is around $800,000, accumulated through decades of film and television work before choosing a quiet retirement away from the spotlight. Danny O'D, as Albert Danny O'D, was born on December 22, 1911, in England. At 59 years old, he played Albert, the elderly working-class resident and longtime community regular in the series. His role as an older male neighbor added comedic timing and lived-in realism to the local environment, representing the everyday voice of tradition within the tight-knit community setting of the series. But Danny O'D's journey into acting began long before television recognition, and it was shaped by decades of stage experience rather than sudden fame. He entered show business at a very young age and spent most of his early career performing in theater and variety entertainment. Working alongside major British comedy names such as Arthur Askey, Les Dawson, and Dick Emery, he built a reputation as a reliable stage performer. Behind that long career, his personal life remained unusually stable and grounded. He married Doris Smith in 1950, and their marriage lasted until her passing in 2000, forming a lifelong partnership that remained largely private and away from public drama. This stability became a defining part of his life story, especially in an industry where relationships often collapsed under fame and pressure. As television became more prominent in his later career, Danny O'D continued working steadily, eventually gaining wider recognition for his role as Eli Duckett in Last of the Summer Wine, 1986 to 2002. Alongside television, he also appeared in films such as Rita, Sue, and Bob 2, 1986, and continued performing in theater productions and pantomimes, even well into his later years. His career was defined less by stardom and more by endurance, consistency, and lifelong dedication to performance. Danny O'D passed away on the 16th of April 2003 at the age of 91 in Hartshead, Yorkshire. At the time of his death, he was remembered as a veteran British comic actor with an estimated net worth of around $1 million earned through decades of stage and television work. Remarkably, he continued performing until around the age of 90, making him one of the longest-working entertainers of his generation, and leaving behind a legacy of quiet longevity and classic British comedy tradition. David Lodge as Corporal Williams. David Lodge was born on the 19th of August, 1921, in Strood, Kent, England. At 49 years old, he played Corporal Williams, the strict male military corporal and disciplined authority soldier in Queenie's castle. His role as a commanding army-style officer brought a firm and controlling male presence into the series. But before becoming a familiar face on British television, David Lodge lived through experiences that shaped his entire outlook on life. During the Second World War, he served in the Royal Air Force, an experience that deeply influenced his later acting style and led him to often be cast in military roles. After the war, he worked in a variety of performance jobs, including circus clowning and music hall entertainment, slowly building his path into acting through stage shows and variety performances. Behind his career success, however, there was a lasting emotional weight that never fully disappeared. His wartime service left him with psychological scars and long-term trauma that he carried quietly throughout his life. Despite this, he continued working steadily, finding structure and stability in performance, especially through military and authority-type roles that became his trademark in British film and television. As his career developed, Lodge became one of the most recognizable supporting actors in British comedy and film, appearing in over 100 productions. He was especially known for his work in the Carry-On films and television projects like The Avengers, The Sweeney, and Spike Milligan's Q series, making him a reliable character actor across decades of work. David Lodge passed away on October 18, 2003, at the age of 82 at Denville Hall, London, after battling cancer. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was around $1 million, earned through a long and consistent acting career. He was remembered as a hard-working performer whose life was shaped by war, comedy, and resilience, leaving behind a legacy of over 60 films and countless television appearances in British entertainment history. That's the full journey of the Queenie's Castle cast then and now. From early fame and quiet careers to personal struggles, health battles, and unforgettable screen moments, each of them left a unique mark on British television history. So after seeing how their lives unfolded over the decades, which cast member surprised you the most when comparing then and now? Do you think the characters they played really delved into their own lives? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more classic TV cast stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.